Hey guys, we want to thank Cap City Tees for sponsoring today's episode. That's right, Cap City Tees, the #1 printing company in Sacramento. Well, at least in our hearts. Cap City Tees is an amazing company putting out amazing quality at, most importantly, amazing prices. They are in line with any major retailer out there. Now, if you're in need of getting a shirt screen printed or embroidered, whether that's your local soccer team or basketball team or volleyball team or all the way up to corporate clothing, Cap City Tees is the place to go. So if you're in need or if you're in want, reach out to Cap City Tees at capcitytees.com or capcitytees@gmail.com. That's capcitytees@gmail.com. Welcome to the Hard Money Show, where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media. It is a good day when I can jump on the podcast and we can talk about what is going on in the real estate market, what's going on in the home loan market, but more importantly, kind of give you an update about the podcast and things like that. I like to kind of be transparent about what's going on. I think because the format of this is designed to be of service, to help, whether it be the consumer or be other people within the industry that are trying to learn something. These things that kind of happen on the back end to me are really important. I think insightful for people. Now, if it's not interesting to you, then I'm sorry, tune in for another podcast. But you might have noticed this is the third consecutive podcast that I am doing by myself. Now, the format for me, I hoped, was always to have kind of one person in the industry, and then the next week it would be myself. And I am working diligently on what this format is going to look like. How do I make this podcast, continue to be of service, but also how do I make it worth my time, right? I mean, this is fun. I guess at this point, I wouldn't call it a hobby necessarily because I do use it, to help bolster my own business. But I would like this to be more profitable. I would like this to be something where I can get in sponsorships. And ultimately, I think that sort of thing attracts bigger people in the industry, right? And not necessarily that I think someone larger in the industry has something more valuable to say than somebody else that doesn't, but they do have a different, unique insight, right? And so my goal is to continue to grow the podcast. And now I've been running into a bit of a barrier, which is kind of why I haven't had anybody on. Now, the first thing is, it was kind of difficult rolling back into the podcast after being sick. And so I am still getting sort of into the rhythm of that. And I haven't been as diligent as I need to be about reaching out to realtors in the community. I mean, there's no real excuse, right? There's an abundance of realtors, even in this market where, realtors are stepping away from the industry and doing something else. There are plenty. So I don't want to use that as an excuse. I just haven't been diligent enough because I've been prioritizing my time in other places. But I have reached out to people, right? That's not to say that I haven't. I have. But I've been getting the realtor no, right? So most realtors won't outright say no. They'll say, oh, well, let me check it out. Let me get back to you. Whatever the case, whatever nice subtlety, whatever it is. And it's nice, right, to not get a no, but it's not a yes. And it's my job to try to continue to convince them. But what I've been finding mostly, in part, the reason for this is because I'm reaching higher for you guys. I'm trying to get people that are creating a larger impact in the community, people who are making an effort to be public in the space, because in all reality, my biggest background, right, is marketing and brand development and advertising and things like that. And so I've been trying to find people who are a lot more visible in the community so I can add that sort of component to the podcast. but I have been getting a lot of the realtor no's. And combine that with not being diligent enough with reaching out to people leads to the third week and possibly a fourth week, right? I did have somebody on scheduled, but unfortunately he had a family emergency. He couldn't be on. And so those things happen, right? I've had to reschedule myself, and so we will get back to it. But right now, the first season was really just like, okay, let's get this thing rolling. I want to get started. The second season, I'm really trying to hone in a little bit more, develop the style and things like that. Because next year, I really want us to be in for season 3 into full swing. I want to have the format really flushed out. I want to have people really scheduled, and I really want to be focusing on promoting the podcast instead of producing the podcast. And that's kind of an interesting part of doing things like this that a lot of people don't really understand, right? They think, "Oh, I'm going to start a podcast." And sure, you could probably have like a podcast app on your phone or something. I don't really know, right? But that's not the case for me, right? When I do things, I do them at the highest standard that I possibly can. And because of that, it takes a very long time to learn how to do these things effectively. And as an example, right, my setup for this podcast is I have the Rode Podcaster 2. That's my audio system that I run everything on, right? There's a lot of complexities to it. I mean, it's one of the best, it's the best system for what it does. And there's a lot of functionality to it. And I haven't unlocked all of that functionality yet, but that runs all my audio systems. And being able to not only get the podcaster to work by itself, but to get it to integrate with certain programs that I'm running took a little bit of time to learn as well. I have a 2-camera setup. One is a Sony A7 II. The other one is a Blackmagic Cinema camera. And I use the Blackmagic for my closer shot. It's much crisper, much nicer, and works with my A10 mini switcher because they're both Blackmagic, and it allows me to have a little more functionality on the software side. And then the A10 is a side shot, and it's a wider look, right? And that doesn't really matter to you guys in the way that you're listening to a podcast, but I've been recording these. And so my hope is to eventually have a video podcast that comes out as well, be able to cut these clips up and provide, the snapshots of important information that people should be listening to. So I have that. I have the A10 mini, which is a video switcher, which allows me to switch between cameras and different audio inputs. So switch between my iPad, where I can get on and show you guys certain things while holding it, right? I have my laptop, which is controlling everything. And then I did just upgrade my monitor. The monitor I had, it was great, but it was long. It took up a lot of space. And now I have a stacked one, right? One on top of the other. And so far, the system is all working well together. And it's taken a very long time to learn to set all of this up and be able to afford it and things like that. But on top of it, right, I'm learning how to run the A10 software, learning how to run the back-end recording systems, running stuff through Zoom. All of that takes time. And so that has been sort of what's been going on. We haven't even been doing this podcast a year, right? We started September, October last year. And so, I'm focusing on that, and I'm trying to get, really people who are making an impact in the community. And that's taking a little bit of time to work that out. And so that's kind of where we're at with the podcast. I'm going to continue to put out podcasts, whether that's by myself or that's with somebody else. But as of right now, that's sort of what I'm looking at, is just, continuing to build consistency in it, because that's what's really important, right? And even then, I'm behind a little bit, right? I'm behind 4 or 5 days. And I need to really get that back up and running correctly, because I want these to be out on a Monday or Tuesday. And then I do the interviews the following Monday or Tuesday. So I don't know. We're going to see if you guys know of somebody who you think should be on the podcast. I'd really love for you guys to share it. You can go to the Hard Money Show Instagram account and you guys can DM me. That's the Hard Money Show Instagram account. So definitely do that. But I got a new format here. Or a new layout for my stuff. I'm very much enjoying it. I think it's a lot nicer setup, especially where my mic is. I upgraded that not too long ago, you guys know. And it's feeling much more comfortable and easy to focus on everything that's going on. So, just continue to get better and better. And, hopefully one day we're really kind of working at that high level that we want to be at. So, kind of moving on from that, and I want to touch a little bit on the new format. Now, I still want to do myself, and I still want to do guest. That I don't think that's going to change, especially with the amount of episodes I'm trying to put out. Right? If I try to put out like 10, maybe a mini season, like 5, 6 to 10 episodes, but I'm trying to put out. I mean, ideally 50 episodes a year, right? Maybe a little less, maybe the whole 52. Maybe that's my goal one year, do one every week. But ultimately, that's kind of where I'm at. And I've had a really difficult time figuring out who this podcast is for, right? And so I think I figured it out. I'm very excited about how that structure is going to work. And I'm not going to say anything yet because there are a couple things I want to get, and I want to really dial in what that's going to look like next year. But I think probably towards the end of this year, I'm going to make an announcement on what that new format's going to look like. And by then, already have people scheduled for the next year and be able to execute that. So excited about that. Now, enough about me, enough about what's going on the podcast. I want to talk about what's going on in the real estate market. And I'm not going to get into the weeds too much, but I'm going to talk about what's going on in the real estate market, and I'm going to go talk to you guys a bit about what's going on with me personally, right? Now, I'm doing this podcast, but I'm not senior. I'm not 20 years into the industry, right? For real estate, I'm going in, this is my 4th year. And for loans, this is my 3rd year. And so it hasn't been super long. But I've just been very lucky to be working at extremely high capacity with a brokerage and a broker who has taken me under his wing, and I've been able to learn and integrate into a lot of things that most people don't get to. I've been very blessed and fortunate in that way. And so let's talk a little bit about my situation first. Essentially, what we're looking at is the market is still tough, right? It's not where we thought or we hoped it was going to be. And essentially, we kind of plan things, 6 months to a year in advance. So we're setting up those goals or setting up those plans. And, this is the reason there's so many realtors leaving the industry. There's massive layoffs on the loan side. And granted, they had too many people in the first place to deal with the refi boom. But ultimately, there's just a huge downsizing, and that's in large part, it has to do with where the real estate market is currently at, right? The listings are really low and things like that. And so, we have pivoted, right? And that means, our brokerage has pivoted. So I've pivoted, and we've talked about this a bit, right? I kind of hold a lot of hats in what I do. I have my real estate license, I have my loan license, I do coaching and guidance. But my biggest thing, my biggest experience and what I don't always get to do, but when we're kind of in this market, we've pivoted a bit. I've been able to get back into actual design work, and actual marketing and things like that. And so that's the conversation we've had over the last 2 weeks, getting ready for hopefully this spring bump where people traditionally come spring going into summer, there's a big influx of listings and then a big influx of buyers for that season, right? So we're preparing for that. We're quadrupling down on that. And I'm in charge of it, right? I mean, I talk with my broker. It's his business, but I'm in charge of the execution, design, and overall, flow of it. And so I've spent a lot of time this week. Yesterday, I spent about 10 hours working on that. Essentially just woke up and started working, and then just kept working until the night. But getting all of that ready, getting all that ready for this coming week to execute on. And I don't want to get into the specifics of what we're pivoting into because, that's our brokerage's business, and this podcast isn't about that, but it's more about me, right? Like, a couple years ago, I was really heavy on doing pre-approvals, or not pre-approvals. Well, I was helping with that, but I was processing at the time. So we're really heavy on loans, purchase loans, especially refinances, and very busy. We're doing 20, 25 a month. And then, the real estate as well. And that's all slowed a bit, right? I've had a couple loans come in, and we have some real estate clients, but the market's kind of, we're not really sure. We're trying to navigate that and make sure, and keep in mind, right? I could get people into homes if I wanted to do it in a way where it wasn't in their best interest, right? If I just kind of took one step to the left and I was like, maybe, but I don't do that. I don't work that way. And so we'll wait. We'll wait until it makes the most sense. And if it makes the most sense tomorrow, great. And if not, then we'll wait. And yeah, there's that old adage, like, when's the best time to get into a property? Well, when you can afford it. But, the market is shifting a bit. And if you're not in love with what you're getting, then there's no reason to move forward. So, we're pivoting a little bit. And what that means for me is I'm spending a lot more time coaching and working with our realtors to try to get them to re-engage in the community. We're working a lot more on our back end systems, so we can be prepared for when there is a larger influx of business. We are working on some back end training systems and things like that are going to be very critical. And I'm learning a lot more of the things that I need to know to help operationally navigate our new realtors into our systems and get them fully processed and ready to go. And so I'm learning a lot more of that stuff on the business structure side, which is really nice. I enjoy that. But then I'm pivoting over a little bit more, a lot heavier to the marketing side. And that's really what I'll be focusing on. And I'm excited because I haven't had a lot of opportunities in the last couple of years to really execute on marketing, because it just, there's design and there's ad work and things like that, and, copywriting, but, heavily executing on social media marketing, I haven't been able to do lately. And so I'm excited to really be able to do that and hopefully drive in business from that. So I spent, this last week getting all of those systems together because, there's a lot of moving parts like that. We're running 6 social media platforms at once. And essentially, just to kind of tell you guys what I got into, 6 social media sites, that's 5 posts a day for every single one of them. So it ended up being a little over 200 posts a week that I was trying to coordinate, manage, and figure out how I'm going to get all of these up. And I got into a good system, which seems to be working right now. It was very, very difficult to get their system to coordinate the way that I needed to do these sort of mass uploads. But I think I have everything worked out and I have everything scheduled. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on while doing these other things. And then when the market does pivot and we get more people in, I'll be a lot more loan heavy and I'll be a lot more real estate heavy. And we might have to tailor back a little bit or bring somebody else on to coordinate the marketing. So that's kind of where I'm at. And so that kind of leads into the real estate market, right? Why we're pivoting. Well, rates are still, I hate to say they're high, right? They're high comparatively to where they were, obviously. I mean, even, 4 or 5%, which is where we hope they kind of sit at. Right now, we're sitting somewhere between 6.3, 6.5%, maybe a little higher depending on your situation for like a conventional loan. And Obviously, when we say these, they're kind of general, like decent buyer and decent credit and, a good, like a conventional loan and a good down payment, right? Keep all of those things in mind when I say that's where the rate's at, right? If you're, a more challenged borrower, then those rates are going to be higher, right? But that's about as low as you're going to get is around, 6.3, unless you buy down the rate or, something like that. So the rates essentially stagnated, but from what I follow, from kind of all indicators, is that the rate's going to continue to go up. There hasn't been enough impact from the Federal Reserves. There hasn't been enough impact in our job economy and with inflation to warrant rates going down. So rates are still up. They're possibly going to continue to go up. And property values are dropping a bit. But there's this weird thing happening that is causing them to stagnate a bit and causing multiple bids on properties, kind of like when we were in COVID. And then there's all these multiple bids and people are really upset, like I can't get into a house. And now they're same thing. People don't want to get into the market, and they're the one of the reasons is because there's multiple bids, right? Now the situations are worse, and we're like, well, it's because the inventory is so low. There's only so many really nice houses that people want, right? I was looking this morning, and in my entire MLS, which I would have to double check exactly where it's going through, but I know for sure if it's only using our MLS and it's not branching into the other MLSs that we're also connected to, because we have access to other systems that aren't directly in our area, it's pretty much down to it's to Merced, it's up to, it's not quite into the Bay, but it's about essentially, I guess Merced's like 2.5, 3 hours from us. And then going into the hills, and then kind of the greater Sacramento area. I really should know the boundaries of our MLS, but I haven't spent enough time looking at that lately. But essentially, there's only about 200 listings on there, a little over 200. That's not very many listings. And the inventory is very low. The new construction builds are still pretty slow, and the rates have stayed, high comparatively to where they were. And so people just aren't buying and people aren't selling. And it's been going on long enough that if you're not pivoting in this market, you might want to start looking for a new job, because that's really where we're at right now, right? It's very tough to get a sale, to get a listing. You have to really be honed in the market. You have to really be creating strong connections, and you have to find people who are in the position to be able to afford to buy now, right? My wife and I were speaking, and when we bought our house, the rates we bought in the peak of the pandemic, so rates were really low. And we were talking about how at our our purchase priced home and the rate we have, where if you were to buy the same home right now, it would be about $1,200 more a month. That's substantial. I mean, if this house was if our home was $1,200 more a month than what it is right now, we probably wouldn't live here, to be honest. And so, I totally understand where people are coming from. I'm empathetic to the situation, and that's why we're kind of at where we're at, right? And we're hoping that the market's going to, start to make some sort of adjustment, and people do, start to get back into the market come spring and fall, because if you are, looking to list your house, statistically, this time of the year is the best to do it, right? These coming months are the best time to do it. And so People need to be prepping now. People need to be talking to realtors now and loan officers now, especially like if you're going to sell your home and get into a new home. And, we have some exciting programs that we're going to be doing at the brokerage where, if you sell, buy, and do your home loan with us, we're going to do crazy, crazy deals on that. So, Orbit Realty, Orbit Home Loans, and Orbit Media, take a look at, those Instagrams and things like that. But we're really excited about stuff like that. I'm excited because I'm continuing to learn. I'm continuing to see new things in the market, and I hope to one day be one of those people that, like how I look to up now, who I look up to now, who were in the market in 2008, and they got to experience that and they got to navigate it, and they're that much better of a person in the industry because of it. I'm hoping that that's going to be me one day, right? Yeah, I went through all of that craziness and came out on the other side. And so, I don't want to go too long on this podcast. That's pretty much what I have. But I will say thank you guys for continuing to listen. Thank you for continuing to share the podcast. I do want to thank our sponsor, Sac City Tees. They have launched a new website. It is very nice. I know they have a couple little like updates and formatting things that they're working on, but they launched a very beautiful website. So that's Sac City Tees. Um, um, I do want to also thank my sponsor for the season, Cap City Tees. They have really like been helpful this season, but more importantly, they've launched a new website, and it is a beautiful website. They are still working out a couple things, I think, formatting wise or whatever it is, but it's a really nice website. So if you guys have an opportunity, go check it out. It's Cap City Tees, CapCityTee, Cap City Tees. They've really done a great job, and I'm really, happy to be partnered with them. And I don't typically do shout outs on the podcast, but, just kind of thinking that it's been a good year and I really appreciate, that partnership. And I've been able to help out some of our guests. If you don't know, our guests all get that are in this season. We're going to get a promo for if they need to get any clothes printed or any screen printing done or any embroidering done, stuff like that. So definitely a good opportunity. Thank you all for continuing to listen. And as always, this is the Hard Money Show where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media.